My in-laws took over my home, but when they asked me to leave for guests, I discovered their secret. I'm Amelia, your everyday 26-year-old who got more than she bargained for. I began, my voice a mix of weariness and determination. I was just another number cruncher until my life took a sharp turn a few years back. This is my story. No frills, just the raw deal. It all started when I switched jobs and joined this new firm as an accountant. That's where Mark came into the picture. He was the sales guy, confident, charming, with a smile that could sell ice to Eskimos. We first bumped into each other in the break room, our chat sparked by the world's most temperamental coffee machine. "Hey, you're the new accountant, right?" Mark leaned casually against the doorframe, a smirk playing on his lips. "Guilty as charged," I responded, trying to look unimpressed, but internally I was already intrigued. "I'm Mark, head of sales and unofficially the resident coffee machine whisperer," he said with a wink. We both laughed, and from that day things just clicked between us. Fast forward 2 years, and Mark planted the most romantic proposal you could imagine. A weekend trip to the beach, a sunset dinner, and him getting down on one knee. It was like something out of a movie. I said yes without a second thought. Our wedding was something else. Beautiful and heartfelt, but it flew by in a blur. We started our married life in the house I inherited from my grandpa, a quaint old place with a lot of character that I've always loved. A few weeks after settling in, Mark brought up a life-changing idea. "Babe, have you ever thought about taking a break from work, being a housewife for a while?" he suggested one evening, his eyes full of hope. I remember feeling a jolt of surprise. A housewife? "But Mark, I've always been passionate about my career," I replied, trying to keep the confusion out of my voice. "I get that, Amelia, but I've been doing well at work. We can afford it, and think about it. No more stress, just focusing on us, maybe even starting a family soon," he said, reaching for my hand. His words, his tone, it was all so convincing. I couldn't help but get swayed by his enthusiasm. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. Why not shake things up a bit, right? The first few weeks were a novelty. I had time to do things I'd never had time for: gardening, reading, and trying out new recipes. Mark would come home to a clean house and dinner on the table. We'd spend our evenings talking about our future, making plans, laughing. It was like a prolonged honeymoon phase. But as time passed, I started feeling a bit restless. I missed the challenges of my job and the satisfaction of solving complex problems. I even missed the annoying buzz of my office phone. Still, I thought to myself, I'll push those feelings aside. This is just an adjustment period. Then things started changing subtly. Mark's compliments about how nice the house looked or how good the dinner tasted became expectations. If dinner was late or the house a bit untidy, he'd make these offhand comments that stung more than I wanted to admit. I started feeling less like a partner and more like a live-in maid. I remember calling my best friend Layla to vent. "I just feel like I'm losing a bit of myself, I confided to her. "Losing yourself, Amelia? You're a firecracker. Don't let this housewife gig douse your spark," Layla said, her voice a mixture of concern and encouragement. She had a point. I had always prided myself on being independent, on making my way, and here I was, feeling lost in a role I never thought I'd play. After settling into this housewife role, I thought I had things figured out, but boy was I wrong. One evening, Mark dropped a surprise that turned everything upside down. He came home looking all serious, which was unusual for him. "Amelia, we need to talk," he started, not even taking off his coat. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. "It's my folks. Their apartment is getting renovated and they need a place to crash just for a couple of weeks," Mark said, avoiding my eyes. I was taken aback. "A couple of weeks here?" "Yeah, it's just for a short while. It won't be that bad," he said, finally looking at me. I sighed, feeling a mix of reluctance and duty. "Okay, for a couple of weeks, but they need to respect our space, Mark." He nodded. "Of course they will. Thanks, babe. You're the best." Fast forward a few days, and Mark's parents, Bob and Victoria, arrived. Let me tell you, it was like a circus unloading bags, boxes, and even furniture. They brought everything but the kitchen sink. "Amelia, dear, make room. We've got a lot of stuff," Victoria said, pushing past me with a box that looked like it contained her entire life. Bob followed, lugging a monstrous armchair. "Hope you don't mind us bringing some comforts from home," he grunted as he squeezed it through the door. Our cozy home turned into a storage unit overnight. Everywhere I looked, there were their things. It was overwhelming to say the least, but that was just the start. Bob and Victoria didn't waste time making themselves at home. Bob took over the TV, flipping channels like he owned the place. Victoria started rearranging my kitchen. My kitchen, I asked, trying to keep my cool. Oh, just organizing things a bit better, dear. You know how it is, she said without even looking at me. I bit my tongue, reminding myself it was only for a short time, but inside I was fuming. This was my home and they were treating it like their vacation house. Then came the dinner fiasco. I made a healthy salad and grilled chicken, my usual fare, but Victoria looked at her plate like I'd served her grass. What's this rabbit food? She scoffed, pushing the plate away. Mom, come on. Amelia worked hard on this, Mark tried to intervene. It's fine, Mark, I can make something else, I said, even though it was far from fine. No, let's just order pizza. I need some real food, Bob chimed in, already picking up his phone. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being an outsider in my own home. Mark snored beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I was hosting, cooking, cleaning, and for what? To be treated like an unpaid maid in my own house? My in-laws, Bob and Victoria, had turned my house into their playground. But things went from bad to worse real quick. Victoria started taking over the kitchen like she was running a military operation. One morning, as I was making my usual avocado toast, she marched in and made a face. What are you eating, bird food? She snorted, rummaging through the fridge. It's avocado toast, Victoria. It's healthy, I replied, trying to keep my cool. Healthy schmaltz. You need some real food, girl. Here, let me make you some eggs and bacon, she said, pushing me aside. I stood there fuming as she took over my breakfast. It was clear she didn't respect my choices or my space. Then there was Bob. He had turned our living room into his lounge. One evening I wanted to watch my favorite show, but Bob was sprawled on the couch watching some loud action movie. Bob, do you mind if I watch my show? It's the season finale tonight, I asked, holding the remote hesitantly. No can do, Amelia. I'm watching this. Find something else to do, he said without even glancing my way. I couldn't believe it. In my living room, I stormed off feeling like a stranger in my house. But the real kicker came a few days later. I found Victoria rearranging my closet. My closet? What the heck, Victoria? That's my stuff, I yelled, losing my temper for the first time. Oh, relax, Amelia. I'm just making some space for our things. You've got too much junk here anyway, she said, tossing my clothes aside. That's when Mark walked in. What's all the yelling about? He asked, looking from me to his mom. Your mother is going through my things. That's what's wrong, I snapped. Mom, maybe you should ask Amelia before moving her stuff, Mark said, but his tone was half-hearted. Fine, I was just trying to help, Victoria huffed, leaving the room in a mock huff. Mark turned to me. Amelia, can't you just let it go? They're just trying to fit in. They're taking over, Mark. This is our home, not theirs, I said, my voice rising. Mark sighed. Just bear with it a bit longer, okay? I felt so alone in that moment. My home didn't feel like mine anymore, and it seemed like Mark was more on their side than mine. So the situation in my house was already pretty tense, but what happened next really pushed me over the edge. One day, I noticed my bank card was missing. Panic mode kicked in. I tore the house apart looking for it, only to find it in the most unexpected place, Victoria's purse. I confronted her immediately. Victoria, why do you have my bank card? She just shrugged. Oh, I needed to pick up a few things, and I didn't have cash on me. I didn't think it would be a big deal. A big deal? You took my card without asking. That's stealing. I was fuming. Before I could say another word, Mark walked in. What's all this shouting about? He asked, looking from me to his mother. Your mom took my bank card and used it without my permission, I explained, holding up the card. He turned to Victoria. Mom, you should have asked first. Victoria rolled her eyes. I just needed a few groceries. It's not like I bought a diamond necklace. I couldn't believe my ears. It's my money, Victoria. You can't just take my things. That's when Mark dropped a bombshell. Amelia, let's not blow this out of proportion. You live off my money anyway, so what's the big deal if my mom uses it? I was speechless. His words hit me like a slap in the face. Your money? I can't believe you're saying this. It's our money and our marriage. He just shrugged. Whatever, it's not a big deal. She'll pay you back. I felt like I was in some bad dream. My husband was taking his mother's side over something so blatantly wrong. A couple of weeks passed and the tension in the house was unbearable. I decided it was time to ask the big question. So, when are you two planning to move back to your apartment? I asked Bob and Victoria one evening at dinner. They just laughed. Move back? Why would we do that? Victoria said, exchanging a look with Mark. Yeah, we've decided to stay here. It's much nicer. And Mark doesn't want to waste money on rent for us, Bob added. I turned to Mark, looking for some sort of explanation. He avoided my eyes. Yeah, Amelia, it doesn't make sense to rent a place for them when we have space here. I sat there stunned. My home, my sanctuary, was being overtaken, and my husband, whom I thought was my partner, was now telling me his parents were here to stay. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. One day I decided to go for a jog just to clear my head, but luck wasn't on my side. I tripped and fell, and the pain was instant. I knew I'd broken my leg. Hobbling back home was a nightmare. When I got back, I found Mark and his parents in the living room. Mark, I think I broke my leg. I need to go to the hospital, I said, trying to keep the pain out of my voice. Mark looked up, annoyed. What now, Amelia? Can't you see we're busy here? Victoria chimed in. Oh, stop being dramatic. It's probably just a sprain. No, it hurts. I need help, I insisted, feeling the room spin from the pain. Bob just scoffed. At your age, you shouldn't be running around like a teenager. Serves you right. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm in pain here. Can't any of you see that? Mark finally got up, his expression more of an inconvenience than concern. Fine, I'll take you, but this better not be some ploy to get out of housework. At the hospital, it was confirmed. A broken leg. The next few weeks were hell. I was stuck at home on crutches, unable to do much. You'd think my husband and his parents would help, right? Wrong. They acted as if nothing had changed. I was still expected to cook and clean. One day I was trying to make lunch, balancing on my crutches. Victoria walked in and saw me struggling. Can't you do that any faster? We're hungry, she said, not offering to help. I'm doing the best I can on one leg, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. Well, it's not good enough. You're being incredibly lazy, Victoria retorted. That's when Mark walked in. What's going on here? He asked, looking from me to his mother. Your wife is taking forever to make lunch. It's like she's using her injury as an excuse, Victoria complained. Mark sighed. Amelia, can't you just try a bit harder? We're all hungry here. I was in disbelief. Try harder? I'm on crutches, Mark. What do you expect me to do? He just shrugged and left the kitchen with his mom, leaving me there, seething and in pain. But you won't believe what happened next in my in-law nightmare. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. A few weeks after my injury, Victoria and Bob announced they were hosting Thanksgiving at our house and inviting their relatives over. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Thanksgiving here? I asked, incredulous. How am I supposed to manage that with my leg like this? Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. Victoria just waved her hand dismissively. Oh, you won't have to do much. Just stay out of the way and let us handle it. I was fuming. This is my house, Victoria. You can't just invite people over without asking me. That's when Mark stepped in. Amelia, it's just a family gathering. Let's not make a big deal out of it. A big deal, Mark? I can barely walk, and now your parents are taking over our house for a party? I said, my voice rising. Bob chimed in. We thought it would be nice to have a family gathering here. After all, we're all living under the same roof now. And then Victoria dropped another bombshell. Amelia, we were thinking it might be best if you stayed somewhere else for a couple of weeks with your leg and all. You'll just be in the way. I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. Stay somewhere else? In my own house? I couldn't believe it. Yes, dear, just for a couple of weeks. It's for the best, Victoria continued as if she was doing me a favor. I felt my blood boiling. You want me to leave my house so you can play host? That's insane, I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. Bob shrugged. We thought you'd appreciate not having to deal with the stress of the holiday. That was it. I lost it. Get out. Both of you, get out of my house now, I yelled, feeling a mix of rage and disbelief. Mark's face turned red. Amelia, you're being unreasonable. They're my parents. You can't just kick them out. Unreasonable? They're taking over my home and you're letting them. I was practically screaming now. Mark's expression hardened. If you can't respect my parents, maybe we shouldn't be together. Is that what you want? A divorce? I glared at him, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Without a word, I went to my desk drawer and pulled out a set of papers I had prepared just in case things went south. "What's this?" Mark asked, his voice faltering as he took the papers from my hand. "Divorce papers. I've had them ready for a while now," I said, my voice steady. Mark looked at me, then at the papers and back at me. "You're serious? You'd go through with this?" "Yes, I am. I won't be bullied in my own house, not by you, not by anyone," I said, feeling a strange sense of empowerment amidst the chaos. Victoria and Bob just stood there, speechless. Mark looked like he had been punched in the gut. The room was thick with tension. "Make your choice, Mark, your parents or our marriage," I said, holding my ground. Mark laughed, a cold, hard sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Fine," he said, and to my shock, he signed the papers right there and then. "You'll regret this, Amelia. You can't even support yourself without me," he said as he gathered his things and left with his parents. Just like that, my marriage was over. The moment the door closed behind them, I felt a strange sense of peace. I was alone, yes, but it was a better alternative to the constant tension and disrespect. The first thing I did was change the locks. It felt like I was securing my fortress. Thanksgiving came around faster than I expected. I was still adjusting to my new reality, finding comfort in the quiet of my own company. Then, unexpectedly, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Mark, his parents, and a bunch of their relatives standing there, ready to celebrate. "What are you doing here?" I asked, stunned. "We're here for Thanksgiving, Amelia. Did you think we were serious about not coming?" Mark said with a smug look. I couldn't believe the audacity. "You're not welcome here anymore, Mark. This is my house and you're not my family, not after what you did," I said firmly. Victoria piped up. "Oh, come on, Amelia, don't be so petty. Let's just have a nice dinner." "No, you need to leave now," I insisted. Mark laughed. "You can't kick us out. This was our family home." "Not anymore. I've changed the locks, Mark. You gave up any right to this house when you signed those papers," I said, feeling a surge of empowerment. There was a moment of silence, then Mark's face turned red with anger. "Fine, have it your way," he said, and they all turned and left. After the Thanksgiving showdown, I started to rebuild my life, and let me tell you, it wasn't easy, but it was mine. A few weeks after Mark and his family left for good, I was sitting in my quiet, peaceful living room when my best friend Layla dropped by. "Hey, Amelia, how are you holding up?" Layla asked as she walked in, her eyes scanning the room. "Better than I expected, actually," I replied, offering her a smile. "You seem different, stronger somehow," Layla observed. I chuckled. "Yeah, I guess getting rid of dead weight does that to you." We both laughed, and at that moment I felt lighter than I had in months. "But seriously, what next for you, Amelia?" Layla asked, her tone shifting to something more serious. I took a deep breath. "I'm going back to work. I've already started looking for accounting jobs. I'm not going to lie, it's a bit scary, but it's time to get back on my feet." Layla nodded. "That's the spirit. You were always the smartest one at the office. They'd be lucky to have you back." Her words meant a lot and gave me the boost I needed. I was ready to face the world again, on my terms. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of job interviews and getting my life back on track. I landed a great position at a local firm, and for the first time in a long while, I was excited about the future. My home was mine again. My life was mine again. I had faced the worst and come out stronger. Let's conclude the story shortly. The divorce was finalized and I moved on. I thrived in my new job, finding satisfaction and purpose in my work. My home, once a battleground, became a haven of peace and independence. I learned that true strength comes from within, and that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of the past, even if it means saying goodbye to someone you once loved. I found my voice, my independence, and most importantly, my happiness. The experience was a painful lesson, but it ultimately led me to a place of self-discovery and empowerment. I learned that I was stronger than I ever thought I was, and that I could face any challenge life threw my way. The story of the in-law nightmare, while difficult, was ultimately a story of resilience, of finding my strength, and of reclaiming my life. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story. Isla and Valen are now happily married, and their baby is on the way. I'm so happy for them. It's been a long road, but they've found their happily ever after. As for Stella, she's still trying to figure things out. I hope she finds a way to change her ways. But for now, Isla and I are focused on our own families and building a future free from the drama of the past. The experience taught me a lot about family, forgiveness, and standing up for what's right. It wasn't easy, but ultimately it was worth it. I'm grateful for my sister's strength and for Valen's unwavering support. We've come out stronger on the other side. What do you think? Did OP and Valen take it too far? After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons. leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, "I'm moving to the sales department soon." If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. "Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it." On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. "It's still working hours." Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. "Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived." I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. "They look good." "What are you talking about?" "These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. "Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each?" "The tea inside is specially blended for us." "The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one?" As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.